I know I've talked a lot about interest rates recently, and this week's no different. Interest rates jumped again, so they're up more than half a percentage point in just 2 weeks. Let's talk about that and more in this week's segment of Market Watch. Hi everyone, it's Joshua Barks here, team lead of the Barks & Co. real estate team and associate broker at Keller Williams Realty Boise. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's segment of Market Watch. If you're new to our channel, we talk about what's going on in the Boise area housing market on a week-over-week basis, and then once a month, we go into a deep dive into the market dynamics for an entire month and compare that to what we saw this time last year. Next week will likely be the market dynamics update, that deep dive, so we can talk about everything that took place in March. This week, however, is going to be a short little mini update like we are used to, and let's just get right into those numbers. So, apart from interest rates, nearly everything as far as pendings, active listings, and sold listings in the last 7 days are down slightly. So we had 346 active listings last week, which we all know is not enough. This week we have 333. So that came down. We had 175 new listings come to market last week. This week we only had 150 new listings come to market. So we're down slightly there. The average days on market for all the listings that are active in Ada County right now is 32 days, which is up slightly. So I'd say that's remaining fairly stable. Then when you're looking at the number of pending sales, those are also down slightly. So we have 598 pending overall right now, which is compared to last week's 613. But when you're looking at the number of new under contracts in the last 7 days, that actually has come up. Last week, we saw 162 listings go under contract where a buyer bought them. This last week, we saw 186 contracts come together where buyers bought them. So we had 150 new listings come to market and 186 listings come off the market. So it's no surprise that inventory is coming down overall. I'm hoping that'll continue to increase and that this week's just a blip, but time will tell there. When we're talking about the number of homes that have closed, we had 158 homes sell in the last 7 days, which is basically the same as last week when we had 159, but is down slightly. Now, when you're looking at the sales over the last 7 days, the average days on market for those was 10, and the average days on market for everything that's pending is still 12. So things are still moving relatively quickly if they're priced and marketed correctly, and depending on where they're at in the price point, the super high end price points are going to take longer than, of course, your entry-level home. Because there are fewer buyers buying the super high-end homes compared to the entry-level homes. Now, when we're talking about interest rates, those jumped again, unfortunately. We are now at an average, national average for the 30-year fixed at 4.67%. Still low historically. I remember just a couple of years ago when the regular interest rate was 6%, but up significantly from what we've started the year with and what we've been used to over the past couple of years. In fact, that 4.67% is up another 0.25% this week. Last week we were up just above 0.25%, 0.26, and this week we're up 0.25 from last week's. So what we're seeing there is we had a 4.42 interest rate last week and then 4.67 now, and the week before that we were in the early fours. So if things continue on this pace, we'll be at over 5% in just a couple of weeks. Now, I don't know if that'll happen, but they are rising aggressively, and according to the reports that I'm reading through Freddie Mac and their national polling, they're still indicating that rates are going to be rising. I'm hoping that this huge uptick that we've been seeing with 0.25% a week slows down, but there's no doubt that they will be rising because the Fed is still trying to combat inflation, and so you have lenders, mortgage lenders also increasing rates to work on that. And yes, we have seen buyer demand drop a little bit with the rise in rates, but according to the report that I read, the demand with the rise in rates is actually still outpacing what expectations are. So that's one of the reasons why we're likely going to see rates continue to rise. if you're in the market and you're wanting to buy a home, the spring, the summer, if you have no good reason on why you're picking the summertime or fall or maybe later this year, now might be a good time especially if you're just a buyer and you don't have a property to sell, because it's going to get tougher and tougher for you as the year goes on, because prices are going to continue to rise, but we're going to see it rise more like this rather than like this for prices, because of interest rates. But interest rates are also going to rise, so it'll get more and more expensive to buy the same home. And if you do need to wait for a specific reason, that's totally okay. I'm not here to scare anybody or to pressure anybody into making a decision now, because it's what is best for you and your family. My advice is, if you don't have a good reason to wait, now might be a good time to jump on the bandwagon before rates go even higher than they are. Now, if you have a property to sell, now might be a good time as well, because you're meeting that kind of happy medium with crossroads where you're selling while prices are still really good and you still have a lot of buyers in the market and it's still very competitive. And then when you buy something, you can lock in on that lower interest rate than what you would get if you had waited. Now, again, it depends on your time frame and what you are looking for. And the best way to answer that is to sit down with a real estate professional that you trust. I'm always happy to provide free information to anybody that's looking for it. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or even investing in real estate and you just need to know where to start, or you're trying to figure out how that works, feel free to schedule time to meet with me. My number's on the bottom of the screen, 208-914-1095. And of course, you can always visit my website. And you don't even have to schedule a time to meet with me if you just have a couple of simple questions. So feel free to comment below, or send me an email, or reach out via text or phone call. I'm always happy to help. Just give you good information so that you can make some good decisions. That's what we have this week. I wanted to keep it short because the next week is going to be super long because it's our deep dive, but stay tuned for that. And I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. The weather is beautiful, so get outside and enjoy yourself.